Hello everyone, welcome to Applications Manager's free training series, Digital Experience Monitoring. So why are we talking about DEM? In the digital era, most enterprises use a web platform to reach potential customers and showcase the products or solutions that they offer. Websites have become extremely popular as a medium of establishing a brand image, and they contribute to making a major share of revenue. Well-planned websites can capture the attention of the target audience, increasing the probability of them turning into valuable paying customers. Whether you deliver a smooth user experience for your clients and prospective customers depends on the performance of your website. In today's webinar, I'm going to walk you through how to measure the performance of your website effectively, how you can identify and address website problems using synthetic monitoring, and we will learn how you can gain insights into web performance by analyzing user behavior patterns. And finally, we will see how we can enhance web page performance to safeguard your brand reputation. According to an article published in browserstack.com, 47% of consumers expect a web page to load in 2 seconds or less. 40% of people abandon a website that takes more than 3 seconds to load. A 1 second delay in page response can result in a 7% reduction in conversions. If your website is unavailable or has poor responsiveness, end users will not be able to engage with your web pages. And they wouldn't want to wait for them to load, which can have a significant impact on your business's reputation. Therefore, to ensure the effectiveness of your site and to avoid any performance hiccups and create seamless digital experiences for your users, website performance monitoring is pivotal. Not only does it provide insight into your website's availability, but it also gives you an understanding of critical metrics of your website so that you can work on improving its reliability and make it work optimally. So the first step in a digital experience is the interaction that the user has with the website. So when the user tries to access it, it needs to be available. Website downtime and slowness are major causes of concern for businesses. Frequent downtimes and slowness can make your site lose credibility among loyal customers as well as create a bad first impression on the first time visitors. So, what causes website downtimes and slowness? Scheduled maintenance. A scheduled maintenance is a temporary period in which a site or an app is made offline or inaccessible for updates, backups, or maintenance purposes. Data center problems. So, if there's a data center problem or a server error, the request from the user may not even reach the server. There may be bugs in the website code which might cause errors and prevent the site from not loading. If too many people are trying to access the website at the same time, it may not be able to handle the load. If hackers are trying to pull any suspicious activities on your sites, it can go down and become slow. To tackle and prevent problems like this, you can use Applications Manager's URL Monitor. So it acts as a continuous URL monitoring service that keeps constant watch over a specific URL or a web page. It helps verify the availability of a specified addressable standard HTTP or HTTPS URL. You can use it to easily monitor your website's availability and to get instant notifications whenever your website goes down. You can even recheck the website status to identify and eliminate false positives. Everybody loves the fast websites. With improvements in broadband speeds and the advent of super fast websites, user expectations about web page speed has changed. Response time of a website determines the speed of the website. So it's basically how long it takes for your web server to connect and send data packets to the browser of an end user. A website without latency can leave a good impression on customers and can help lower bounce rates too. Applications Manager's URL Monitor tracks your website's response time along with split ups such as DNS time, connection time, first byte time, and last byte time. So, first byte time is the time it takes for a browser to receive the first byte of response from a web server. meaning it's a very strong indication of how fast the website is performing for that user. Applications Manager also supports root cause diagnosis. This helps you to troubleshoot issues and reduce MTTR. So let's now switch to the product UI to see how we can add a URL monitor. So this is the web UI. So you go to new monitor and click on add new monitor. And under web servers or services, you click on URL monitor. So here you can specify the display name and the URL that you want to monitor. And you can specify the polling interval here along with the timeout. And then we have the HTTP configuration section. So you have the submission method. You can either choose post or get. So if you choose post, you'll have to specify the payload type as well. So the main difference between post and get is that get carries the request parameter, which is appended in the URL string, while post carries it in the message body, which makes it a more secure way of transferring data from client to a server. So then we have the authentication. So you can specify if it's basic or NTLM authentication. If you have the credentials, you can specify it below, or you can choose it from a credential list. Or we also have the SAML ADFS authentication. You'll need to add it. You'll need to add the SAML authenticator for the same. And then we have error if response code is greater than 200. So this basically helps you identify if you receive an error whenever you're trying to access the website. So if you give 200 here, it means that if the response time, if the response code that's received is greater than 200, it'll be marked as an error. So if the monitor detects an error, you can retry immediately to verify it. So you can specify the same here. And you can also specify user agents. So this can be done if you want to customize the default user agent HTTP request header. And you can also enter the header name and the header value here. And if SSL is enabled, you can specify the version. And if this website requires a client certificate authentication, you can specify it here and choose the certificate also along with the password if it's required. So we also have the content check section. So if this specific URL should contain a specific expression, you can specify it here. And if it should not contain something, you can specify it here. So you will be notified whether or not if the website contains this specific regular expression. So you can also choose the do case sensitive keyword search in case you want it to be case sensitive. And if you want to associate this monitor with a monitor group, you can do so. So then you can just click on add URL monitor. You can see that the monitor has been added. Let's see how the monitor looks. So here you can see the monitor information. You have the name of the monitor, the URL address, and the polling interval, and when it was last polled and when the next poll is. So you also have the availability. And then here you can see, like I said, the response time, both the average response time and the current response time, and all the split up of the response time. So you have the DNS time, the connection time, first byte time, and the last byte time. Then we also have the page size details. So you have the current page size details and the percentage of page size change. So if in a particular poll there is a change in the size of the page, it will be specified in the percentage value here. And you can also compare it with the previous page size. So this is how a URL monitor looks in Applications Manager. So now let's see how we can identify and address website problems using synthetic monitoring. So, like I was saying earlier, in today's age of instant gratification, end users expect to be able to enjoy a seamless issue-free experience on your website. Although monitoring the website availability and response time gives you a fair idea of whether your website is up and running or not, you cannot always know if your users are able to perform transactions without fail unless you understand the website's end user experience. This is where you need synthetic transaction monitoring. So, synthetic transaction monitoring involves analyzing website performance from an end user perspective, which can help you identify issues that might otherwise go unnoticed. It also lets you record complex workflows to keep an eye on important transactions that are taking place on your website. One of the main advantages of synthetic monitoring is that it can dynamically track website availability and performance from your user's location. Meeting SLAs can be an important objective for many business owners, and synthetic transaction monitoring helps you verify if these SLAs are met. It basically gives you a line of sight on service level agreements. So let's see how we can perform synthetic transaction monitoring in Applications Manager. So in Applications Manager, we have the real browser monitoring, which facilitates synthetic transaction monitoring. So it basically opens up an actual browser like Firefox from multiple geographical locations and tracks how these elements in your websites load from that particular location, and more specifically, the way your users view them. So the first step involves a web transaction recorder in which you can record critical transactions. Every transaction that we perform, be it hovering or clicking on an element, all of it will be saved in a Selenium based script file. Applications Manager then opens up a real browser in which it plays the recorded transaction again to identify if any error occurs. So during the playback, data collection takes place and all the performance metrics are then published on the monitor dashboard. So it also lets you take screenshots during the playback if there are any errors. The main advantage of synthetic transaction monitoring is that you can test it from different locations. So to facilitate this monitoring in multiple locations, we make use of end user monitoring agents. So let's say you're hosting an event in your office and you've created a registration form for the same. All the employees need to register for the event, which means employees from all your branch offices should be able to do so without any hassle. To test this critical workflow of filling the form and successfully registering for the event, you can use Applications Manager's real browser monitoring. For that, you'll first need to install EUM agents in all your branch offices. Then, you can record the transaction of filling and registering from your main office. This same transaction will also be performed in all your branch offices using this EUM agent, which will then send the data to Applications Manager. This way, you can check if this critical workflow functions without any errors in all the desired locations. So, Applications Manager's end user monitoring agents basically provide greater visibility into the user experience and help detect potential performance problems with ease. So these agents can be installed in multiple branch offices in different cities or in the systems of your end users. All you need is a secure HTTPS connection between the agent and the Applications Manager server. So now we'll see how we can add a real browser monitor using Applications Manager. So we have the web transaction recorder. We specify the host name and the SSL port number. And then we specify the username and password of your Applications Manager. So here you click on create real browser monitor. So let's take a URL. So once you enter the URL, you'll see the live URL here. You can perform whatever transactions you want. You can click on elements or you can hover over elements. And once you do that, you can just click on preview and save. So you can specify the monitor name here. And you can specify the poll frequency and the page load timeout. And then you can specify which playback user you want to use. Here you have Mozilla, Microsoft Edge, and Google Chrome. And here you will see all the agents that have been mapped to Applications Manager. So here Priya 9573 is an EUM agent. So you can just click on the same, which means it will be performed in that particular location as well. And then we have these options. You can click this if you want to associate it with a monitor group. Accept untrusted certificates. So this will indicate that the website certificate is untrusted or if it's not approved by a trusted certificate authority. Show performance metrics. So you can check this box if you want additional metrics like page rendering time, download time, block time, etc. And then you have the show screenshots option. So you can check this box if you want the real browser monitor to capture screenshots of your transactions to provide better insights, especially during downtime. So then we have also add URL sequence monitor. So here we'll only be adding the real browser monitor. So I'm just unchecking this box. So once you do that, you can just click on next. So here you can see the steps that you performed during the transactions and the number of actions and the time that it took. So if you click this, you will see all of the actions in details. So there was a mouse over this, and there was also a click and wait. So all of these steps will be displayed here. And you can also specify the step name if you want. So we also have generate alert if following keywords are not present. So in this particular step, if you want to generate an alert, if the specific keyword is not present, you can specify it here. If you want to generate an alert, if it is present, you can specify the same here. So now you can just either perform a test playback or create the real browser monitor. So you can see that the monitor has been added successfully. So let's see how the monitor looks. So here is the performance overview. You can see the EOM agents that have been mapped. So if you click on this monitor, you can see the average page load time, the transaction time, and the page load time of steps. So for each step, you'll be able to see the page load. So you can see it both in the graphical format as well as the tabular format. And then you will see the screenshots as well. And you can also see the resource size percentage and resource count percentage graphs. So here you will see the split up of the components of that particular transaction. So then you also have the waterfall chart. So here you can see the steps and the status code and all the other details as well. You have the duration, the blocking time, secure connection time, download time, connection time, and all of that. So this is how we do synthetic transaction monitoring in Applications Manager. So let's talk about the use cases of synthetic transaction monitoring. So comparing your performance to your competition. With synthetic transaction monitoring, you can set up benchmark scenarios to see how your applications are performing over time. You can also benchmark your company's performance against top competitors with a certain historical time frame or within a specific geographical region. This approach will help you establish a strategic outlook and preserve competitive advantage in the marketplace. So testing is an important and an early stage of application development. Synthetic monitoring provides a set of baselines and thresholds that will pinpoint any obstacles that one is likely to face while using the application in real time. Today's websites increasingly rely on third-party features such as cards, ads, customer reviews, web analytics, social networking, SEO add-ons, video, and much more to provide outstanding customer experiences. So if there's a weak link in the chain, or if one or more of these elements are not working properly, it can adversely impact your site. So, synthetic transaction monitoring can greatly assist in helping you to monitor your third party applications while also alerting you to potential or real performance degradations and downtime impacts. So, this helps tremendously in providing a line of sight on your service level agreements in order to hold the third party vendors accountable. Synthetic monitoring also helps you set up baseline tests in order to measure the way your customers will interact with your websites. This type of testing can provide direct feedback on performance degradation or availability issues. It also will help your team locate the root cause and will engage the right experts and fix issues before they impact end users. So let's move on to the next topic. Let's see how we can gain insights into web performance by analyzing user behavior pattern. So we will be doing this by using real user monitoring. So what is real user monitoring? Real user monitoring refers to capturing the user's interactions with the website in real time. So this helps you analyze how your end users perceive your websites. So, as businesses go digital and global, their websites are accessed from various devices and from multiple geographies. So, it's important to provide a consistent user experience across all geographies and devices. But in reality, the user experience could be impacted by various external factors like network latency, operational hiccups, trouble retrieving the requesting resources, or even slow ISPs. Also, what works in one browser may not work in the other. This is where RUM comes in handy. So it helps you see why your website is slow in a particular region and identify if you've overlooked any issues with your page load time. You can also find out where and why a user abandoned a page. All of this information enables you to optimize your website performance. So, to understand why RUM is essential, we must understand the drawbacks of synthetic transaction monitoring. So, the one of the major weakness is that it does not always align with reality. Due to the fact that the nature of the traffic that is used for synthetic testing is not organic but synthetic, it really isn't a representative of real user experience at any given time. And its outcome and performance are rather predictable. Because synthetic monitoring uses simulated actions, it does not predict the actions of real life customers. So, when you receive complaints from end users in real time, synthetic monitoring data does not tell you what the end user was actually doing or experiencing. So, you would have to painstakingly analyze performance for every business critical transaction and create scripts for synthetic testing in order to uncover possible issues. And this can sometimes be time consuming. Synthetic monitoring can't match the diversity of the performance variables that exist in the real world. Because you're not monitoring actual users, you aren't really getting any data on how your product is used in the real world. All you have is simply a narrow experience or view of the application performance. This is why we need real user monitoring. So, how does real user monitoring work in Applications Manager? To facilitate the data collection and reporting, real user monitoring's remote monitoring agent is deployed in the server where the web application is hosted. Following that, a small JavaScript snippet is generated by Applications Manager and is placed in the header or footer part of the HTML code of the web application that you want to track. So upon loading, the JavaScript snippet acts as the core that collects the performance data and constantly transmits it to the RUM agent. The RUM agent acts as a liaison between this JavaScript code and the Applications Manager web client, which visually depicts the captured data. So first you will need to download and install the RUM agent, and then the generated JavaScript snippet from the Applications Manager console is placed in the header or footer part of the HTML code. And if you want to monitor a web application, you'll need to insert this specific code in a common index page of the web application that needs to be monitored. So real user monitoring in Applications Manager helps you analyze the front-end performance across several geographies. So you will also be able to track the performance of various geographies, ISPs, browsers, and devices to ensure hassle-free digital experiences. You'll also be able to become aware of user satisfaction levels using AppDex scores. You can isolate web transactions that contribute to poor user experiences of the applications. So this also helps you gain comprehensive insights about domain resources and end user sessions. You can also identify JavaScript errors instantly to prevent users from reporting service errors. You can also analyze and compare the impact of any new change that's made in the site and how it has affected the user experience. So let's now learn how we can add a real user monitor in Applications Manager. So before you add the monitor, so you would have to download and install the RUM agent. So I've already done that. So let's see how we can add a real user monitor. So you click on new monitor and click on add new monitor, and under web server or services, we click on real user monitor. So here you'll need to specify the display name. And then you have to specify the website URL. Let's say we want to monitor Applications Manager itself. So which itself is a web application. So I'm just specifying it here. And then you have the AppDex threshold. So AppDex is basically an open standard to measure the user satisfaction regarding a web application. Here we are measuring it in milliseconds. So basically, let me give you an example. If we give the value as say 2000, it means that if the response time of this specific URL when accessed by a user is anywhere between the range of 0 to 2000, then the user was satisfied. If it ranges between 2000 to 8000, that is 4 times the specified value, it means that the response is tolerated by the user. If it is greater than 8000, it indicates that the user was frustrated. So this is basically to identify if the user was either satisfied or tolerated or frustrated. So then we have the application framework type. We have two types, traditional and single page applications. So traditional applications are the most common applications. These involve multiple pages. So an Amazon application is a classic example. So every time you perform an action, you are redirected to a new page. Whereas in single page applications, these are just static, which means they have a single web page, which means any transaction that's performed in this specific web page is tracked by Ajax calls and is in static in nature. So here, Applications Manager is a traditional application. So let's just choose traditional. So then you can choose to track Ajax calls and cross-domain Ajax calls. You can also specify domains that you want to exclude. So this can come in handy when you need not monitor any internal traffic, like from your own team from your website. So let's just say so.com. You can also specify user agents. Similar to domains, you can choose to exclude user agents. So for example, you can choose to exclude users accessing from a specific browser, say Firefox or Windows, etc. Then we have track resource performance. So by default, Applications Manager does not capture website resources. In order for you to capture this, you will need to check this box. So affect monitor availability in idle state. So every website or web application will have a specific idle time. So for example, in Applications Manager, let's say the set idle time is 60 minutes. So if you enable this option, it means that your monitor availability will be affected when the monitor has not pulled data for more than 60 minutes. So then you can associate this RUM agent here. And then if you want to associate it with a monitor group, you can specify it here, or you can just click on add monitor. So here, after you add the monitor, it's important for you to add that specific JavaScript snippet. In the common JS file. So you will have the snippet here. So you will have to copy paste this in the header part or the footer part of the common JS file of your application or your web page. Once you do that and you start performing transactions, you will get all the data. So this is how the RUM monitor looks. So first you have the app deck score. Like I said, you will see the number of users that were satisfied, tolerating, or frustrated. You have the overall total response time and the page views and the errors that were encountered. And here you have the map, the world view. So, and then we have the response time and the split up of all the response times here. And you have the graphical views, page views, and throughput. Then we have the geographic tab, which gives you in-depth details. So you can see for a particular region, what's the update score, the average response time, the page views, and throughput. Then we have ISP, so response time by internet service providers. For this specific provider, the average response time, total count, and throughput. Then you have specific to browsers. So you have the browser usage split up as well. And you can see for each of the browsers what was the average response time, the total count, and the throughput. So you can also see the split up for devices. So, and you also have graphs about top viewport, the connection type, the device memory, and you also have the summary here. And we have the web pages tab, which basically shows you all the web transactions that were performed and the average response time for each of that, and the total count of that specific transaction, the throughput, along with the average page size. So if you click on each of these transactions, you have more data. You can see the Ajax calls here. It's all specified. The transaction names, the total count, throughput, and you also have the summary tab. Here you can see the response time graph and the throughput graph as well. Then you have the user sessions tab. So here you get an idea, an overview of all the users that have accessed your websites, the total number of users, the start time and the user ID, along with the browser from which they accessed it, the device, the country, also the number of pages that they navigated. You can also choose filters here to understand and filter live users, active users, and expired users. And then we have resources tab. So here we can see the split up of first party resources, third party resources, and CDN resources. And then we have the Ajax calls tab. So here you can see all the Ajax calls that were performed by the user. And you click on this specific transaction, you have more details. So you have the response time details, throughput details. And we also have the JavaScript errors tab. So all the errors that the users encountered when they accessed your website, and the number of pages in which it occurred, the number of files, the number of users, the total count. Here you can see the actual error as well. So then you have details about the type of error, the file it occurred in, the page, from which browser did this error occur, and the affected users count along with domain details. So this is the real user monitoring feature in Applications Manager. So now let's see how synthetic and real user monitoring complement one another. Okay, first is correlating business with performance. So SaaS and application providers can basically use real user monitoring to understand the real-time experience of users in their websites. So synthetic monitoring can provide the performance data that will enable you to pinpoint the problems with page load time or network bottlenecks. However, if you want to analyze exactly how web performance impacts business revenue, then you need to analyze more than synthetic performance metrics. So since RUM is generated through real user traffic, it provides essential insight into real business metrics, such as conversion rates, which can be correlated with the continuous performance metrics that was collected during synthetic testing. So identify problems before active users arrive. No matter where applications are hosted, problems are bound to occur. So synthetic monitoring is one of the most effective solutions to identify a configuration problem that was caused by an off-hours maintenance change so that it can be fixed before users begin using your application service in the early morning hours. On the other hand, real user monitoring would be most helpful tool to measure application responsiveness for each and every live user during the peak hours. Troubleshooting outages. Combining synthetic and RUM data can make troubleshooting quicker and easier. So when synthetic tests fail or if they trigger an alert, data gathered from real user monitor will show you the real-time impact on end user experience. Similarly, if RUM data reveals a performance anomaly, then you can use that to synthetically replicate the issue by exercising the same transaction across a number of ISPs and geographical locations. So, collecting data in this way allows you to triangulate from various vantage points to identify the root cause that may lie in the data path between the end users and your application service. So, real user monitoring and synthetic monitoring can be used simultaneously to verify and deep dive into performance issues. So let's proceed to the last topic of the day, which is enhancing web page performance to safeguard your brand reputation. So what's a web page analyzer and why would you need it? Synthetic transaction monitoring and real user monitoring gives you insights into website performance from an end user perspective. However, Applications Manager's web page analyzer basically enables you to perform web page analysis to keep track of your web pages and optimize their performance using page speed rules and suggestions. So this can help you identify what exactly is slowing down your websites. So PageSpeed Insights is an online tool which helps in identifying the performance best practices on any given website. And it provides suggestions on a web page or optimizations, and it suggests overall ideas on how to make a website faster. So here's web page analyzer and a crux. So basically, you get details about the response time and domain summary. And like I said, you have the page speed scores and suggestions to optimize your web pages. And you can also do request tracking with a waterfall chart. So what's a waterfall chart? So when a web page renders, it might have various components that constitute that specific page. For example, CSS that can be used for styles and JS files that are basically scripts, and you also have images, text, etc. So a web page analyzer tracks these transactions that takes place in all of these components when it loads. So the waterfall chart basically gives you a visual representation of critical metrics related to each transaction. So this helps you understand which component loads slowly. So this way you can prevent website downtime and slowness and help the website perform optimally. So you also have SSL certificate management as part of the web page analyzer, which we will see when we are adding the web page analyzer. So before you add a web page analyzer, we have specific add-ons for the same. So it's a prerequisite. You should have downloaded the add-ons, and you should unzip it in the Applications Manager's working folder. So once you do that, you will be able to add the web page analyzer. So let's see how we can add a web page analyzer. So you click on new monitor and add new monitor, and under web server or services, you click on web page analyzer. So here you specify the display name of the monitor, and then you specify the URL. And then you have the page load timeout. So here you basically enter the maximum time for page load. So for example, if the website is heavy, the page might not load even after a long time. So it's essential that we wait for a specified amount of time alone. Otherwise, the loaded part alone is taken for monitoring and analyzing. Then we have the wait after load. So this is basically you have to enter the in some websites there might be some non-essential elements of a web page that might load after the page renders. So this wait time specifies for how much time we can wait for these additional elements to load. Then you can specify the http method. You have get and post. If you choose post, you will have to specify the payload and custom headers as well. You can specify the custom HTTP headers here. And if it requires a username and password, you can specify the same. And if you want to block any domains, you can specify them here and add content check for response. So during the page rendering response, if you want to check for a specific content, you can specify them here. If you want it to contain certain content, you can specify it here. If you do not want, you can specify it here. And if you want to do a case sensitive keyword search, you can enable that as well. And you can enable SSL monitoring. So if you do that, you should specify the domain of the SSL certificate along with the port and the version of the SSL certificate. If it needs a proxy, then you will have to check this box. And in case there's a certificate name mismatch error, if you want to ignore it, you can just specify it here by checking this box. And if you want to ignore invalid root and intermediate certificate as well, you can check this box. And then you can specify the timeout in seconds. And you can also specify the polling interval. So if you have the credentials, you will need to test it here before you can add the monitor. So if you want to associate this particular monitor with a monitor group, you can click on this and specify it, or you can just click on add monitor. Okay, let's see how the web page analyzer monitor basically looks. So here you can see the overview. Like I said, you'll be able to see the web page summary. You can see the web page URL, and you will see the response time summary and all of the components of response time. And you have the domain summary here. You have the domain name along with IP address, the number of requests, the size of each domain, the average response time, the average throughput, and we have the network log tab. And we have the resource details. So here you have request types filtered by type and the number of requests for each type of these requests along with the size. And finally, we have the page speed insights. So like I said, it basically gives you an idea about the score. So you have a score which can range between 0 to 100, and for grade from A to D. Um, so any score that is, from 90 or above is considered good, and a score between 50 to 90 basically indicates that the page needs improvement, and a score below 50 indicates that the page is poor. So for scores below 100, you will get suggestions. Like for example, if you click here, you will be able to see the suggestions for this improvement of the score. You can also see that the grade is C here. So, and you can also see the overall page speed score. So you can use all of these to analyze and optimize your web pages. So this is about our web page analyzer. So we've come to the end of the session. Let's do a quick recap of what we learned today. We'll also be launching a quick poll. So please help us understand your experience with the trainer and the training. So first today we learned how we can monitor individual URLs for better user experience, and we understood how we can analyze issues faced in critical workflows by using synthetic transaction monitoring. We also saw how we can leverage synthetic transaction monitoring to go beyond the app only view. And we also understood how we can use real-time experiences, understand real-time user experiences using real user monitoring. And we also saw how we can optimize web pages using the web page analyzer. Have a great day.